and especially for you guys listening that are the younger generation, that you were brought up with a phone in your face, right? It's like you have to create your life. You have to design your life. Otherwise, it'll be designed for you. And when it's designed for you, it's just a constant reaction instead of you stepping into the role that God has for you, which is the co-creator of your life. He gave you the clay. He gave you the gifts. He gave you the talent. He gave you the intellect. He gave you the opportunity, but you are the co-creator. The gifts are present already. What you do with those gifts, that's the outcome of your life. That is, we have free will. That is the outcome of our lives. And so
Made to Shine. As you just heard in that introduction, we are in for a delight today. We have the beautiful, amazing, impressive, so knowledgeable Kelly Roach on with us today. And why I wanted her on, as everybody knows on this podcast, we believe that everybody has a ministry. It's not just preachers, it's not just pastors, it's the way you live your life. It's when you're hanging out with friends in college, it's when you're walking with friends in high school, or when you're leading massive businesses, when you leave school and go into the corporate world, whatever have you. And Kelly, between being a wife, an author, just a podcast host of one of the top podcasts, she's leading so many amazing people in their business endeavors. She worked with Fortune 500 companies. I mean, she is amazing. And Kelly, I've just seen from afar, you shine your light in all that you do. And I cannot wait to hear the value that you have today for our Made to Shine audience. Thank you for being on.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes. And you don't know this, but at Made to Shine, we have a tradition, which is before we dive into the crux of what we're going to talk about today, the question I start off every single conversation is, what is your favorite quote and why?
Oh, well, I would say the quote I've lived my entire life by is just be the best that you can be in everything that you do. And I think, your perspective of staying humble and staying focused on just showing up fully in the moment, in the task at hand, with who you're present with in the moment is everything, right? And so I think especially in our world today, it's even more important to just have that reminder of being present and applying yourself, because you don't realize, you could be having a little side conversation with someone that changes someone's life because you said one little thing that just you didn't think twice about, but you were just, there in that moment with that person. I think there's people watching and listening everything we do. So just showing up,
Oh, I love that. It's funny you say just show up, because I have a big poster. It's not in this office, but in another one that says the success is in showing up. And I believe that, because I think even let's talk about podcasting. Jesse Itzler, I think, told us that like 25% of podcasts are only successful because the rest of the people only have one episode or something like that.
Yeah.
Crazy. And you just think about podcasting. If you just continue to do it, you're already better than a majority of the people. It's just showing up time and time again. And I know that you, as an incredibly successful business person, you know that to be true in your heart and your story. And I was actually looking on your Instagram a few days ago, and you talk a lot about the quiet work. And I think that, the quiet work a lot of times is the behind the scenes work of business that we don't typically see. And I think that's true with our stories too. Like there's a behind the scenes story that I can't see on Kelly's Instagram. So talk us through. I mean, someone looks at you today and they're like, she's the dream. That's what I want to be doing. What's the quiet behind the scenes story that kind of got you here?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I was on the free lunch line. My mom shopped at the expired goods warehouse. we really couldn't afford to do any of the things that I wanted to do growing up. And so I figured out how to make them happen anyway, right? I scrubbed the dance studio floors. I went and negotiated with the owner of the gymnastics gym that I wanted to train at. I always found a way, right? And that just led me into, when I went to corporate, I was the first one in, the last one out every single day. I was promoted 7 times in 8 years. I built a $50 million portfolio, and it wasn't magic. I was a B student. I struggled in school. I was always up at 5 a.m. studying, trying to, work and get good grades. But I wasn't like a necessarily book smart person.
Mhm.
But I think I always was resourceful, and I wasn't willing to take no for an answer, right? So for me, before I ever started in the business world, I really just applied myself as much as I possibly could. I had like 5 jobs in college. I learned so much from being a cocktail server and an NFL cheerleader and an aerobics instructor and a babysitter. And I was doing all these different things going through school, just paying the bills, and ultimately, I never really dreamed of being an entrepreneur. I never dreamed of running my own company. That was not what my aspiration was. But once I built this entity within the Fortune 500 that I was working for, and I realized, I'm really not making a difference here. I'm making this one company millions and millions of dollars, and I want to be dedicating my life to vocation, to helping people, to touching people, to changing people's lives, to taking everything I learned and making a difference. And I will say, you mentioned about the podcast. For me, I'm almost at episode 1,000 on my show, right? And I have been, first of all, I built my business while I was working full time because I had a new baby at home, and my husband and I had decided that we wanted one of us to be home full time. We did not want our daughter in daycare. And that was a choice that we had made when we were dating before we even got married. We were like, this is important to us. And I think that it's really easy in life to let circumstances dictate your outcomes, and instead of letting circumstances dictate your resourcefulness. And I think that's something really important to think about. So I know that was kind of a long answer, but maybe that just
No,
gives like a
so
couple
good.
insights into
Yes.
where I came from and where I'm coming from, I guess.
I love it because I will say I think this upcoming generation, and I love them for it, very entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
Like they want to do their own thing, they want to be their own
yeah.
boss. We see, I think, this influencing world has had a lot of impact on that, what have you. But I'm curious because there's a lot of young people right now working a job that
Mhm,
they hate, that they
mhm,
don't like, and they
mhm,
want to do their own thing or they want to
mhm,
break off.
mhm.
But I think that there's a reason for every season, and that
Yeah.
sometimes God puts tools in our tool belt that we need to have the character for the next thing that's coming our way. So, talk to me through the importance that you see in hindsight of having those years, kind of maybe not doing your own thing or living the dream life,
Oh,
so to speak,
yeah.
that taught you to be able to be successful in what you're doing right now.
Oh, I'm so happy that you asked that. I was actually being interviewed yesterday, and I was sharing that I actually use what I learned in my corporate job every single day now. I have a portfolio of 6 companies. My original company I took to 8 figures, and then I started breaking out all of my satellite companies. Um, the fundamentals that you learn in a job, leadership, communication, sales, deliverables, understanding metrics, being accountable to a budget. Uh, that experience is so invaluable. And I personally believe, and this is one of the things that really motivated me to get into the world of small business, because I saw the small business failure rate. And I very clearly understood that the reason why failure rate is so high in the business world is that people start with a passion and a dream and a thing that they are talented at, but they don't realize that the vast majority of building a successful company is not in that skill or expertise, that service that you're going to provide, but it's actually in the skill of business management. It's in the skill of leadership, building winning teams, understanding how to manage money, P&L, finance, right? Operations, um, communication, and even developing your on-camera presence now is one of the top most important skills in business. So, what I would say to anyone that is listening to this today that has a vision of ultimately becoming an entrepreneur, that's amazing and it's a great path in life. And you want to get some critical tools in your tool belt, while someone else is funding that learning process for you. When
Yeah.
you go into a corporate environment, like if you pick the right company and if you get a good boss that actually is invested in training and mentoring you, you're getting paid to learn.
Mhm.
Whereas if you go straight out on your own, you're paying that way for yourself. And that's why a lot of people run out of money, because
Mhm.
they're learning on the job of entrepreneurship, but they don't have a corporate entity that's paying to train them. They're paying to train themselves, right? And so many people run out of money in that process. So I think just being a little patient is important,
Mhm.
and not saying don't go for your dream. Absolutely. But like for me, I'll give a perfect example. I worked my full-time job for over 5 years while I was building my business.
Mhm.
I wasn't like, burn the boats, I'm going to go spend my life savings and destroy everything that I just spent 10 years building, while I start and learn how to be an entrepreneur. And I had very high level business and leadership experience running a team of 100 people before I started my business. And I still was like, nah, I'm going to build a bridge. I'm not going to burn the boat. And I think that's something really important for people like me to be speaking out about, because I think most of the mentality out there is super reckless. And I think that's why the failure rate is so high. I'm not saying being fearful or being scared. I'm saying be strategic. That
I Everyone needs to rewind and listen to that again. I could not agree more, because I think we do live such a day and age that it's almost like you're not committed if you're not
right.
giving up everything and willing to sleep on a mattress
Yes.
to go. I'm the same. Like for me, I worked corporate tech
Yeah.
sales. And it's funny because the running meetings, discovery questions, learning how to close deals, all of that has come forth in what
Oh,
I'm doing now.
1000%.
But good night, I was not willing to sleep on a mattress on some random floor. No, like I have a lifestyle that I want
Yes.
to obtain.
Yes.
And so I think the true sign of commitment is, are you willing to do the work when it's inconvenient,
Yeah.
when you have to do it before your
Yep.
corporate job, after your corporate job? And that's the message that I'm trying to teach a lot of these people
Yeah.
coming up, because the whole like burn the boats, I mean, good night. I don't know. I don't think there's a way to be strategic. I like that word
Yeah.
that you said.
For sure. For sure.
Um, you talk a lot about following your, like, in defining your internal
Hmm.
instincts. And I love that, because I think in business, sometimes we fall to the realm of it's logical, it's got to be on paper, factual, it's got to add up. But there is this internal, like, knowing. I think it's the
Yeah.
spirit, right? Comes from God. It's like this. So, talk to me about your relationship with that and navigating your way to this incredibly successful business you've built.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the power of intuition, Holy Spirit, is it's so crucial, right? Because each of us were put here for a reason with a purpose and a plan, right? And I am
Mhm.
very much of the perspective that when you figure out what your life calling is, when you figure out God instilled these gifts in you for a reason. He gave you the gifts that you have. The talent that you have, he gave you that talent. And your responsibility is to figure out the highest and best use of that, right? And I think in everything in life, sometimes the decision on paper is absolutely the wrong one, even though everything looks right. Right. And sometimes, the logical decision is the right one. And I think that it's this balance, and it's this self-trust, and it's developing this self-leadership of the balance between, logic and strategy and intuition and self-trust, and also faith in the bigger picture, faith in what your calling is, courage, right? Having the courage to keep digging deeper, to say, what would you have of me, God? What is the plan for my life? What is the bigger picture? I may not be able to do it on my own, but I trust with you, anything is possible, right?
So, have you always incorporated faith into your career?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And the answer is no. I've always been a person of faith. I have always been a person of faith. My faith has gone on a long and windy trip through the years and throughout my life. And I've always been a person of God. I've always been a believer. And I think when I was coming up and first initially building my business, especially in the online space, I felt very fearful to share my beliefs and to share my faith publicly and to really claim it in everything that I was doing. And it's just been in the last like couple years that I was really like, you know what? This is why I'm having success. And if I'm not talking about the fact that it's my faith that's getting me through. It's my faith, it's my belief, it's my gifts from God. It's all of those things. I can't really be the leader that I want to be or be the mentor that I want to be if I'm not leading with that, right? And so that was a
Mhm.
huge evolution for me. It took me a really long time to have the courage to really lead with that. And I'm so glad now that I am, because I think in our world, especially today, um, so many people are lost and they are seeking and searching for things externally that can only be found
Mhm.
in the love of God. They're seeking and searching for a peace that can only be found in the love of God. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of people are carrying things or trying to carry things on their own that they're not going to be able to, right? And they have to tap into something bigger than themselves. But I think, unfortunately, in the world today, society has become very godless, and you have to be very intentional about seeking out people and mentors and spaces where people are believers that are going to encourage you to grow in that way.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally am on like par with you there around, I think that I'm I'm curious what, if any, like how your definition of success has changed from when you were building it on less of a foundation of God to now when you're leading with faith. Because I think there is a connotation in the world that giving something to God, it's like you're in a way going to be less successful, or it's bad to be successful, it's bad to be
Yes.
ambitious. Like talk to me about that
Yeah,
distinction.
absolutely. Well, I think first of all, in the Bible, I think it's like one of abundance is like one of the most used phrases like in the Bible, right? Like I think it's in there like a couple thousand times. And, obviously like in God's world and in his natural creation, everything is in abundance, right? It's us humans that
Mhm.
create scarcity and create fear and all of those things. So I think that's one perspective there. I think for me, actually, like when I look at the perspective of, what I can do and what I was doing and what I did do on my own, nothing's on your own. But when I was really reliant more on self versus really thinking about like God's role in what I was doing, I think I was much more focused on like the transaction and the outcome and the achievement and the result and all of those things, which I got. And I always had a mind for being really intentional about being of service. That's why I even did this, right? So it's not like that was not present. But I think now I have just a much more peaceful approach to everything that I'm doing. My goals are not any smaller. I think there's far more that I can do in trusting in God and looking for his guidance and having him order my steps, right? So I don't think that is a discouragement from setting big goals or stands in the way. I
Mhm.
think it actually facilitates it. And I think most of what we really want to do in the world in terms of impacting people and touching lives and, you know, um, really creating a ripple effect, a legacy of our work. Um, that needs to come through you from God, right? And
Yeah,
that's how
yeah,
it's going to be the greatest use of your gifts, and that's really what it is. So I think that there
yeah.
is like a very strange kind of twisted perspective of like you can't do good and want to make money and also like be a person of God. God is abundant, right? Like when money is put in the right hands, unbelievable things happen. And I think that's
Amen.
just something so important for everyone listening to remember is like money put in the right hands changes the world, and you can both
Mhm.
make a lot of money and you can do a ton of good, and you can use your gifts in
Mhm.
your highest and best capacity.
Amen. I love that. I was actually reading, there's a book, I think it's Michael Howes, maybe, The Psychology of Money. I might be botching the author's name, but he talks about how money makes you more of the person you
It's
already
so
are.
true.
So if you're greedy, it's going to make you more
Yeah.
greedy. If you're a giver, it's going to make you more of
Yes.
a giver. And it's just amazing. My mom actually, she works with a lot of clients with their portfolio, and she's like, you meet some of the stingiest people in the world that have the most amount of money, and then you
Yeah.
meet the best people in the world. And it's true. So I love what you
Yeah.
said there. A pastor of mine once said, God doesn't make you less ambitious, but a better type of
Oh,
ambitious,
I
not
feel
less
that.
successful,
Yes.
but a better type of successful. And you said when you were talking through that, like all the achievements, all the accolades, you got
Yeah.
it. You got the things that you were gunning for. And it sounded like there was a missing piece in that equation. Once you got it, you realized, wait, do I really have
Yeah.
it? So was there a moment you were like, there must be another part of success I'm not tapping into? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I had all of this success. I achieved so many things that were like on the list that I wanted to achieve. And my pivot point was when I realized like I'm really not glorifying God in what I'm doing. And is that really, can I really be answering my calling if I'm not doing that? Like, meaning, I think there came a point where I realized like I'm teaching thousands of people business and mindset and all of these things. But if part of what I'm teaching is not faith, if part of what I'm teaching is not about God, it is not incorporating that, am I actually fulfilling the plan for my life? And,
yeah.
that was like a really strong pivot point for me of it wasn't just incorporating faith into my business. The pivot point for me was like, how am I being in alignment with my
Mm,
purpose if I'm teaching all these other things and there isn't a faith component, right? Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Was there resistance towards that with the people you worked with at
No,
all?
I
Or was
mean, of
there
course, like the first day that I started praying and said God on one of my calls, I immediately had someone email my team and be like, I'm out. And I've had
mm,
people definitely be like, this isn't for me. And they've just like excused themselves and whatever. But 99% of people have been amazing and they're like so welcoming of it and they're so excited. And this is the thing, everybody's at a different place in their journey. So that same person that raised their hand and exited immediately, a year from now, 2 years from now, chances are God will touch them in a way that
mm,
their pivot point happens and they'll be back, and that's the thing is like we can't force anyone to be at a different place in their God journey than they are, and that's not our job.
mm,
Our job is to show up as the light every single day, and by people
mm.
interacting with us, a natural byproduct of that should be, okay, well, I love being around this human and this human lives this way and believes this. So maybe if that's good for that person, maybe I should check that out for me, right? It's a byproduct of your being, right? And so that's all I'm trying to do is like just expose people to a way of being. And if they like that way of being and they like that way of shining light in the world, maybe then they will say, you know what, I want what she's having. I'm going to go check out this God thing and
Yeah.
see what this is all about, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. This is so on point. I was recording actually a couple weeks ago a podcast on like how to walk out your faith in your corporate job. And it very much said something similar. It's like it's not about hitting people over the head with Bible verses. It's about being so
Yeah.
kind and so
Yeah.
loving and so forgiving. People are like, either she's
Yeah.
crazy or she knows something that I don't.
Exactly. That's
And
exactly right.
and that's how, I mean, that's how you shine faith in
Yes.
business. It's being so
Yeah.
honest and with so much integrity.
It's so true, and it's very interesting because you don't even need to say it, and that was the biggest learning for me when I made the pivot into really sharing this and bringing this into my business. The thing that was most telling for me was that there were so many God people already in my realm. Like I wasn't saying it, but they were already feeling it, and so I was
Yeah.
already attracting all of these people that believe it and want more of it and were attracted to me because of it, even though I wasn't even saying it. You know what I'm saying? So you're absolutely right. It's
Yeah.
just living. It's just how you live. It's how you show up. It's how you interact. And that's why I said, with the quote, be the best that you can be in everything that you do. It's a way of being,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Mhm. And be the best you can be. I think about like with this generation coming up, we kind of, I don't know, in a way where I mean we're constantly inundated with what other people are doing, all the stuff, and I think sometimes we're trying to be the best what we think other
Yeah.
people want us to be or what other people are
Yes.
being. And you talk about building that sound
Yeah.
foundation for a lot of the clients you work with, and I know you talk about
Yeah.
self-love being an integral part of
Yeah.
that. So did that come from a time in your life where you weren't experiencing self-love in your business journey or personal journey, or what did that
Yeah,
look like?
it's interesting. I think the first time I didn't think about self-love for a really, really long time. Like it wasn't even something on my radar. I was just kind of like, I'm going to show up. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to make stuff happen. I'm going to be the best that I can be. But I think for me in the last couple years, I realized how much people punish themselves. Like I think people beat that. Like I think most people are their own worst critic. And I started seeing that in so many of my clients and so many people that were feeling so much pain and anxiety and stress. Um and so I realized how important it was to talk about that. And I feel like I have pretty healthy self-talk. Like I'm not someone that, is constantly like, saying negative things to myself, but it's something we can all work on, right? And I think that to your point, I think just recognizing again, like first of all, and I say this all the time, love me some internet marketing, but the internet is full of mirages and projections, right? And so it's really important to not get caught up in the vortex of like what that is, and to really be focused on running your own race, and to really be focused on exploring your own purpose, and to really, make sure that, you're in the world but not of the world. And I think that's especially important right now with everything that's going on. Like you just got to show up, you got to do you got to be the best you can be. You got to not worry about keeping up with this or, being accepted by that or whatever the case, and it'll all work out.
So in the world, but not of the world. How, like, I'm thinking about the 20-year-old right now that just got off scrolling on Instagram, probably listening to this
Yeah.
while scrolling on
Yes.
TikTok or something, right? Or the 24-year-old that's at work looking through their emails, listening to this. Like, how do you practically live your life in the world with people and
Mhm.
but not be of it? How did you find that
Yeah, I think one of the
distinction was made?
most important things is creating space where you are really sitting with what you want for your life, and taking time for quiet internal reflection. Because I think what happens is like when you're constantly like just on the devices and you're online and you're on this and it dings and buzzes and all these things, all of your energy is being dissipated outward. And it's like you're absorbing from all of these external sources. And you're not even clear anymore on who you are or what you're trying to do or what you're trying to create. And, I think taking time for self reflection and taking time to really design your own life, right? Because when you take time to design your own life, when you're clear on what you want to get out of your life, when you're clear on what you want in your relationships, when you're present in what actually matters to you, you're not going to want or desire to be constantly absorbing this energy from everyone else. Like I give the example all the time, like for me, I don't watch or consume content online. I don't, I'm not a consumer, right? I'm a creator, which means I
Mhm.
basically read a book a week. That's how I learn. That's how I consume content, because I'm after timeless concepts that can create new neural pathways in my brain. I don't want this constant keeping up with the everything online is a construct of what someone wants you to think or believe about them. Right. And so I
Yeah.
think most of the time people don't realize that the things that they're consuming are framing their worldview based on a false construct. instead of actually
Mm,
doing the deep inner work of getting clear on what they want to feel like day to day.
mhm,
And once you know what you want to feel like on a day to day, then you can start creating a life around that that is going to be supportive and conducive to that. And for most people, that's probably going to look like less time online. It's probably going to look like more physical activity. It's probably going to look like
mhm.
less connections, fewer but deeper relationships where you actually have a very heart centered and depth of relationship, right? And so I think again, all of these things are they're so individual. And I think that, yeah, I mean, especially for you guys listening that are the younger generation, that you were brought up with a phone in your face, right? It's like you
Yeah,
have to create your life. You have to design your life. Otherwise, it'll be designed for you. And when it's
so
designed for you, it's just a constant reaction instead of you stepping into the role that God has for you, which is the co-creator of your life. He gave you the clay, he gave you the gifts, he gave you the talent, he gave you the intellect, he gave you the opportunity, but you are the co-creator. The gifts are present
yeah,
already. What you do with those gifts, that's the outcome of your life. That is, we have free will. That is the outcome of our lives. And so you have
yeah.
to decide, what will you do with the clay, right? How will you exercise the free will that you have in your own life to be a co-creator of absolutely anything that you desire?
So
Mhm.
good. I once heard a preacher put it like this, like God gave us the wood and the tools to build the table, but he didn't give us the
Yeah.
table. Like he gave us all we
Yeah.
need. I don't know why table was used, but
Yeah.
he gave us all we need, but he's not going to
Yep.
build it for us. Like we've got to. And so co-creator, I love that. I'm curious. I'm always selfishly so interested in like super successful, ambitious women that I of course look up to in regards to this relationship between if it's meant to be, it's up to me, and God is the ultimate, like God is God, I'm not
Yeah.
God. Like, how do you balance that in your life?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's something that I pray about a lot, right? Because that's the never-ending question, right? So for me, like I just said, I know I feel that I have clarity at this stage in my life on where God is expecting me to go, and what the vision is for my life, and my job is to show up and apply myself fully to that. But I'm not all knowing. I don't know. There's things that, we go after in life that we think are for us, and maybe they're not, right? And so, I think it's one of those things where just accepting that rejection comes in order to redirect us and to protect us. And sometimes that can feel like losing years of your life. Sometimes that can feel like a relationship that you invested in for years that then overnight is gone. Sometimes it feels like I had two partnerships that failed, where people just really kind of took advantage of my kindness, perceived kindness for weakness, and really tough lessons with that. Really tough lessons with, a lot of things I've gone through in business over the process. People see the success on the outside. They have no idea the turmoil, the setbacks, the obstacles, the tears, the losses that you suffered on the way to that. And so I think that if it's going to be, it's up to me, absolutely. But the ultimate decider is God, right? So you show up and you apply yourself fully, and you do the best that you can possibly do, and you give it everything that you've got, and you trust that if it's for you, it will be. And if it's not for you, there's something so much better that you're not aware of, that's not on your radar, that you don't even have in your perspective, that's coming down the pike. And it's learning just so, so, so hard because we're stubborn, right? I know I'm stubborn. When I set my mind to something, like,
Very
God help
stubborn.
you.
Yeah.
Like, right? But yeah, it's
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
constant journey and that constant process of trusting that if it is in fact for you, it will be. And if it's not, there's something better on the way.
I love how you talk about the tears and the rejection because I think sometimes when we are confident that we're following in what God has planned for us, we think it's
Oh
smooth
yeah.
sailing, baby, like
Yeah.
nothing's coming. And I was, in scripture yesterday, just looking at Jesus talking about how you have to build your house on the solid rock, and the wind will come and the rain will come and the flood waters will come.
Yeah.
It's like we forget that part. And when sometimes flood waters come in the form of Susie saying something rude about the business you're building, or Johnny over there making fun of you at the lunchroom, whatever have you, we forget that Jesus told us like that stuff will come. It's what are you building that progression on? And you talk about this 1% life, like living your 1% life. And part of that, I'm sure, is navigating your relationship with the hard and the challenges that come your way. So talk to me through like, you have this pattern of teaching people to live their 1% life. What does that look like? And what does it look like to
I
kind
mean,
of
listen,
claim
I
that?
think in everything you can live above the line or you can live below the line. That's it. Like, I think it's that simple in life. It's either you're a victim and things happen to you, or you're an empowered creator and things happen for you. And to me, it's very black and white. And you have to decide which person are you. Because if you're the person that lives above the line, you do not anticipate that there will not be challenges, or that there will not be hardships, or that there will not be, setbacks or whatever along the way. But you decide that you're going to respond in the best way you possibly can, and you're going to keep moving forward, and you're going to learn, and you're going to grow from it, and whatever. But if you live below the line, then you've given your power away, and you've decided that things are happening to you. There's nothing you can do about it, and you just have to react to the cards that you're dealt, right? So I think that's a really important decision, and it's something that, especially for the next generation, I think is, you guys, you got to get that, right? Because no one is instilling that in this generation. You have to do it for yourself. And you have to have high aspirations for yourself. It's sad to me that culture has perpetuated so many things that are so detrimental to 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds. And there's just been so many diversions from the evolution of becoming your best self. And that's why it's great that people have this show to listen to, with you, Annie, because you need someone to create a pattern interrupt, to be like, yo, like that's not good for you. Like, that may be popular, that may be the trend, that may be what you see all your peers, all your colleagues doing, but that is not good for you. That is not going to create the life that you want. That's not going to give you the outcome that you want. And I think it's really, really important to know that, like, ultimately you're on a path alone. And that might sound harsh. That might sound, oh, I don't want to be on a path alone. You are, like, whether you like it or not, when things are going well, and when you have a lot to give to others, people are going to rally around you. And when you're at your lowest moment, and when things aren't going well, you're going to look to the left and you're going to look to the right, and you're going to realize, holy shit, I'm actually alone in this. And it's going to be between you and God to figure your stuff out and to pick yourself back up again. And so I think it's really important to understand that the people that you feel like you have to prove yourself to, or the people that you're adjusting your behavior around, or the people that you feel like you have to keep up with, or the people that you have to prove something, they ain't going to be there. When the going gets tough, they ain't going to be there, right? So you have to build yourself up. You have to be strong mentally and physically and spiritually, so that when those hard times come, you are equipped to deal with it. Because Sally and Susie, that were encouraging you to take the leap and to do this and to do that stupid crap, they're not going to be there to help you through it. So just, keeping being a good steward of your own life. Like, really, like that's how I could encapsulate it, is like being a good steward of your own life. It's short. It goes quick, right? And so that's just, something to think about.
So true. It's just taking responsibility. And it's funny, to your point, not only do we not have people or organizations, schools teaching kids to do that, they're teaching them the opposite. Like, I have a sister who's a fourth grade teacher, and she's legal, like she's not allowed to fail. She's not allowed to fail the kid, and I'm just like, man, when you're teaching that kid, they don't have to take responsibility for not studying. They don't have to take responsibility. And I think about my own life, like, to your point, I always say the only relationship you are guaranteed to have the entirety of your life, the entirety of it, is the one with your creator and yourself. So why on earth would you not prioritize flourishing those relationships first, because to your, like, my parents, my heroes, I have the best, I have an unfair advantage of having the best parents in the world. I do. I say that I love my parents. But even then, they're not
Yeah.
with me the entirety of my life. And so it's learning how to navigate, what does Annie do when she's down, when she's happy? What are her weak spots? What are her strong points?
Yeah.
What does God want me to do with that? How does he want me to steward this life? Taking responsibility for my, oh
Yeah.
crap, I messed up moments, which come very often.
Yeah.
And just walking in that. So Kelly, I love that. And I know we're coming up on time here. So last question I have for you is how I always end off the podcast. You know, we do have this younger generation we're speaking to, and there's the classic question of, like, if you could go back and give yourself advice, what would you say? I'm going to ask you, like, 10-year-old Kelly, 15-year-old Kelly, what advice would she give you right
That's
now?
so good. That's so good. Yeah, I think just have fun. Just have fun. You know, just keep that
Mm.
innocence, keep that childlike fun in your heart and in your spirit. And I just had my 41st birthday 2 days ago. And yeah,
Happy
so
belated.
I'm just in a journey of returning to that, right? I just signed up for a hip hop class. I'm like working with a new personal trainer. I'm like kind of like getting back into some things. I think just giving yourself permission to like have fun along the way.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because we're all children, right? We are all children of God. And I think sometimes we
Yeah.
don't have fun. If you're like, I know a lot of people listening to this are like
Yeah.
us, and that they're ambitious, they have goals, and they forget, like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it is about having,
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
wants us to have fun.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
we're not here forever. Kelly, thank you for being on. This was so delightful. I know my listeners tuning in are just so much insight, and I'm just so grateful that you took the time and poured your heart
Thank you
into
for
me to
having
shine
me. It
today.
was great to
My
be
friend,
here.
I hope that this blessed you and encouraged you, reminded you that God gave you a unique light, and it is your job to shine it in this world, because we need you to. That being said, if you were blessed by this message and you can think of anybody else that also needs this type of encouragement, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, leave me a comment. It helps me out a lot and helps this message that I do believe God gave my heart to share with the world gets out. I hope you have such an amazing rest of your day.